The following is based on verified economic data, energy market reports, and documented historical precedents. This video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. The last time America went to war in the Middle East, gas prices doubled in just 18 months. Inflation surged to levels not seen in decades. Ordinary Americans watched their savings lose value in real time while the government told them everything was under control. Right now, tensions involving Iran are creating one of the most dangerous energy situations the global economy has seen in decades. Iran sits on the fourth largest oil reserves on the planet. It also controls access to the Strait of Hormuz, the single most important waterway in the entire global oil supply chain. Every single day, roughly 20% of the world's oil passes through this narrow passage. Iran has repeatedly threatened to close it. Oil supertanker rates have already begun rising sharply. And the financial consequences of what could happen next are going to hit your wallet whether you are paying attention or not. In this video, we are going to break down exactly what could happen, how bad it could get, and what you can do right now to protect yourself. To understand why a conflict involving Iran could affect the entire global economy, you need to understand one geographic fact. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway just 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. It connects the Persian Gulf to the rest of the world. Every day, approximately 17 to 21 million barrels of oil move through this strait. That represents roughly 20% of the entire world's daily oil consumption. This includes oil used to heat homes, power factories, and produce the gasoline that fills cars across the United States. There is no simple alternative route. There is no pipeline capable of replacing this flow of oil. If the Strait of Hormuz were ever closed, even partially or temporarily, the global oil supply would experience an immediate shock. Strategic reserves can help temporarily, but they cannot fully replace the daily volume that moves through this corridor. Iran knows this. And Iran has the military capability to threaten the waterway through naval mines, anti-ship missiles, and fast attack boats that can disrupt tanker traffic. This is not speculation. It is a widely documented military and economic reality. And it is the single biggest financial threat this conflict could pose to ordinary people around the world. Now let's talk about what is already happening in energy markets. Since tensions began escalating, oil shipping costs have already started rising. When the cost of transporting oil increases, that cost moves through the entire supply chain. First, the shipping companies charge more. Then refiners pay more. Then distributors pay more. Then gas stations raise prices. And finally, consumers feel the increase at the pump. This process usually takes between 2 and 6 weeks. Which means price increases triggered by recent events may not have fully appeared at gas stations yet. But history gives us a clear picture of what can happen during major oil disruptions. In 1973, the Arab oil embargo caused gasoline prices in the United States to jump dramatically. Gas stations experienced shortages, rationing was introduced, and long lines formed across the country. The American economy soon entered a recession. In 1990, when Iraq invaded Kuwait, oil prices doubled within weeks. The resulting energy shock contributed to another economic downturn. Then in 2003, during the Iraq War, oil prices began rising steadily. Oil was about $30 per barrel when the war began. By 2008, it had climbed to $147 per barrel. Gasoline prices rose from around $1.50 per gallon to over $4 per gallon. A conflict involving Iran could potentially disrupt oil markets even more dramatically because of the Strait of Hormuz. So how would this affect your personal finances? There are 5 main ways. The first and most immediate impact would be gas prices. Every $10 increase in oil prices typically adds about 25 cents to the cost of a gallon of gasoline. If oil prices were to rise to $120 or even $150 per barrel, gas prices could increase dramatically. For the average driver who travels around 15,000 miles per year in a vehicle that gets 25 miles per gallon, that means roughly 600 gallons of fuel per year. If gas prices rise by $2 per gallon, that would cost the average driver about $1,200 more each year. The second impact would be grocery prices. Almost everything in a grocery store arrives by truck. And trucks run on diesel fuel. When diesel prices rise, transportation costs increase. That increase is eventually passed on to consumers. Fertilizers used in agriculture are also heavily linked to energy markets. When energy prices rise, farming costs rise, and food prices eventually follow. The full impact usually appears within 3 to 6 months. The third impact would be home energy costs. Natural gas and electricity prices often rise alongside oil prices during global energy disruptions. If your home relies on natural gas or electricity generated by gas power plants, your utility bills could increase significantly. The fourth impact could appear in financial markets. Wars create uncertainty, and financial markets react quickly to uncertainty. Industries that rely heavily on fuel, like airlines, shipping companies, and manufacturing firms, often see their profits shrink when energy costs rise. This can lead to stock market volatility that affects retirement accounts and investment portfolios. The fifth and most complex impact involves inflation and interest rates. When energy prices rise, the cost of producing and transporting goods increases. This pushes overall inflation higher. If inflation rises significantly, central banks may respond by raising interest rates. Higher interest rates make mortgages more expensive, car loans more expensive, and credit card debt more expensive. Over time, this can slow economic growth. Now let's talk about what people can do to prepare. First, understand that gas prices at the pump often lag behind oil market changes by several weeks. Second, building a basic supply of non-perishable foods can help households avoid paying higher grocery prices later. Third, reviewing household budgets and reducing unnecessary debt can provide protection if interest rates rise. Fourth, maintaining an emergency fund with several months of living expenses can provide stability during periods of economic uncertainty. Major global events can create sudden disruptions that affect employment, supply chains, and household finances. Having savings available can make a significant difference during those times. When you step back and look at the bigger picture, the situation becomes clear. The global economy relies heavily on energy flowing through a very small number of strategic choke points. The Strait of Hormuz is the most important of them. If tensions involving that region ever escalate into a serious disruption, the financial effects could ripple through gas prices, food prices, household energy costs, investment markets, and interest rates. Governments rarely send warnings before economic shocks occur. Markets react first. Preparation usually needs to happen before the full impact becomes visible. So here is the question. Which of these potential impacts concerns you the most? Gas prices? Grocery prices? Energy bills? Investment markets? Or interest rates? Let me know in the comments. Share this video with someone who should understand how global events can affect everyday finances. Subscribe for more breakdowns of major stories shaping the economy. And stay informed. Because understanding what is happening in the world is the first step toward protecting yourself from the consequences. This video is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial or investment advice. Economic projections are based on historical precedent and publicly available data.